That teaches you to depend upon another race is the leadership that will enslave. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find the leadership of our own.
Not your average nigga, I'm a guy out the hood. They can't downplay me. I came up, I'm elevated. I ain't gotta say too much for them to know I'm coming for what's mine. You know they see me in my presence, say they see how I'm coming. Young, but you not just gonna finesse me like you did my peoples. Then back when you said they was emancipated. This ain't that. Your head too big, you feeling yourself. The game wasn't fair, you had the advantage, we wasn't educated. I don't look at you people the same. Nah. Your worst nightmare, my skin tone about them chains. Yeah. Not no circus lion, son, I can't be tamed. You gon' have to kill me, pussy, Toby ain't my name. Y'all still want us think our history started when we were slaves? What? Come on now, talk about them pyramids we made. I was chosen by that man, you know y'all just been running game. The nerve of you acting like...
Fat Joe, how you feel about Fat Joe?
I like Fat Joe. One of the things I respected about Fat Joe was when he reaffirmed that Latinos are Africans. He openly said that Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Cubans were African, and they need to start acting like it. Their ancestors came from the continent just like ours did. Now, some people could argue he only said that in order to, keep his validity in the hip hop community, but I believe he was sincere. I believe Fat Joe was sincere. I'm a fan of Fat Joe. I like him. My biggest issue with all the rappers would be, when are y'all going to do more for the community? Because see, my issue is this. Right now, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary right now all over the country, all over the world. 50th anniversary of hip hop. We only got 60 days left in 2023. Do you mean to tell me we're going to let this year-long celebration go by and nobody's going to have a serious conversation about whether hip-hop has actually been a benefit or not to the Black community? I haven't seen a conversation, a YouTube, a town hall meeting, a BET special. I don't see anybody talking about the ramifications, the negative impact that hip hop has had on the Black community. Now, the first thing the hip hop artist is going to say, I'm only rapping what I live. But you don't live it no more. The minute you start making money, you moved out the neighborhood. So why you still rapping about drugs and death when you don't live around that no more? That means you're a hypocrite. If you're telling me you're rapping what you live, you don't live it no more. And if you're so dedicated to telling the ghetto tale, why did you move out the neighborhood? Why do you send your kids to private schools? So you live in a white neighborhood, you send your kids to white private schools, you moved out the Black ghetto the minute you had enough money to do so, but yet you're telling me the reason you're still rapping about death, drugs, jail, and homicide is because that's the life you live. You don't live it no more. So for me, I'm looking at hip hop and I'm saying to myself, it is the most influential genre in the world. 50 years, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And in 50 years, the hip hop community hasn't built a single relevant institution for the Black community anywhere. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. Look, Dr. King began his career with the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. That means Dr. King had 13 years. Look at what he did in 13 years. Let's go to the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party was founded in 1966. The revolutionary phase of the Black Panther Party was pretty much over with by 1971. That's 5 or 6 years. And look what the Panthers did in 5 or 6 years. Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, showed up in New York in 1916. He's deported in 1927. 11 years. Hip hop has been around for 50 years. Not a single hospital, not a single school, not a single bank, not a single supermarket, not a single distribution company. How can we call hip hop a blessing to the black community when that type of money being made off of our culture in the community doesn't benefit from it at all? So you come to the community and give out a few turkeys. You come to the community and give out a few pair of sneakers. You come to the community and you throw a couple parties. And in exchange for some damn turkeys and chickens and some sneakers, you push death and destruction on our children for a living. And we're supposed to be okay with that because you dropped off some clothes and some turkeys. It's not acceptable. Until hip hop begins to be a blessing for the black community, hip hop is an agent of white supremacy.
All right, family. Welcome to Shifting the Culture podcast. I am your host, Brother King Cam, and tonight we're talking about hip hop's responsibility to the community, family. And as you heard there, Dr. Umar Johnson in a recent interview highlighted some issues that he has with our brothers and sisters in the hip hop community. So first and foremost, I want to say shout out to the Facebook family. Shout out to Twitter and YouTube for checking in. Make sure that you comment in the comment section what city and state that you checking in from. You know, man, we international on this platform, so we have people watching from all over the country. And man, we definitely want to see who is in the building tonight. So if you're on our YouTube, make sure that you like and make sure that you subscribe. You hit that bell so you can stay notified each and every time that we drop a video, as well as Facebook family. I need you to comment. I need you to like. Let's drive that engagement up. Shout out to the Twitter family. Let's retweet, as well as to the other social media platforms as well that's going to be taking a look at this. And tonight I'm also going to be joined by some dynamic contributors and guests of the show who's going to be speaking to what you just heard from Dr. Umar Johnson as it pertains to the community. And he made some very valid points. Dr. Umar was making points, some irrefutable points at that. So it's hard to really come back and combat what he's saying as far as the responsibility of the hip hop community. And I'm in agreement with Dr. Umar. My only pushback to what he is saying is the role necessarily of the quote unquote hip hop artist. When we study hip hop within the 50 years that it has been in existence, starting, let's say, in the late 70s and 80s, really. In the 80s is really got the birth. You know, some people can say rap started a lot earlier than the 80s, obviously, but early 80s, late 70s, early 80s is what hip hop got its quote unquote birth, if you will. And in that, you had a lot of artists that were coming out that were speaking about the conditions of our community as well as their own personal conditions in which they lived in. Obviously, they're a part of our community. And you saw more and more conscious rap, which is the title it fell under, or the genre that it fell under, a category, where they was talking about consciously what they were living in, what they were going through, what was happening when it comes to policing, police terrorism and brutality, and just the overall conditions of black people in our community. A lot of them grew up, seeing Dr. King. A lot of them grew up hearing and listening to Brother Malcolm X. So they were infused with that spirit to fight for liberation. And in the music, you was able to see and hear that same spirit of revolution. Also, at that same time, you had the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan standing back up, rebuilding the Nation of Islam. And in that, they were infused with the spirit to fight and stand against those who were coming into our community and creating more violence, bringing drugs, bringing guns into our community and taking advantage of our condition. So for me, the artists were the conveyors of the message. To me, the artists were the watchmen on the wall who would paint the picture of the current condition in our neighborhoods so that the masses would have that image, have that visualization of what was taking place so that it would empower us as a people to develop our own cities, our own towns, our own schools, our own grocery stores, our own things that would restore our people in our community back to prominence. I don't take the full stance that hip hop artists, solely artists, are responsible for rebuilding or building the institutions. I believe their role is more of messenger, conveyor, ambassador, where they take the conditions of the people that they see, they highlight it for the masses, and then those within that community then participate in collective economics that will allow us to be able to establish our own institutions and our own programs. So that doesn't mean that the artists, however, don't have any responsibility or accountability for, one, the music that they put out, or two, their level of involvement in the building of institutions, because they're the ones who have the money, the bulk money. So a lot of them are making a lot of money. A lot of the record labels have paid them a lot of money. They made a lot of money for selling a lot of records. We spend a lot of money going to their concerts. So they've made a lot of money. We support them. They should be assisting us and supporting us in our fight to build our own institutions and to rebuild the Black Wall Streets, the Rosewoods, the Auburn Avenues in our different cities and towns, rebuild the wasted cities that have been destroyed and left for nothing, i.e. Detroit. We should be rebuilding them. And it should be the artists, the entertainers, the athletes with the type of money that they have should be backing and supporting us in that effort. So it's a group thing. It's a collective thing. It's not just on one aspect of the community. It's not just on another aspect of the community, but it's a group and collective effort. And I think about Black Wall Street specifically in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in Tulsa, Oklahoma, those who started that particular town wasn't, and this is in the early 1920s. So it wasn't your artists, it wasn't artists and entertainers, but it was entrepreneurs who actually moved, businessmen who actually put up the money to start purchasing the land and initiate the building of the cities and towns, and more entrepreneurs, more businesses supported it, and it actually grew into what we came to know as Black Wall Street. So I think it's a group thing, it's a collective thing that has to take place. I don't believe it rests on the shoulders of one particular community to do so. And when we begin to single people out or call people out the way that Dr. Umar has done, you can start to alienate some people. And we saw that with the D1 situation, where D1 came in and he was discussing the current state of hip hop in the community. And then he started talking about artists and started name dropping specific artists. Then you saw the reaction that those artists had. And it was like, well, from their perspective, the things that we do, you're not highlighting those. Nobody's talking about that. The things that we're doing, the fight that we're engaged in now, as we are actively battling the powers in the industry. And it wasn't received well the way that we would expect it to be received, right? So, that's my take on it. But now I want to go and I want to bring to the conversation my contributors. And I got some powerful brothers that's going to be joining us tonight. And I'm really honored to have the opportunity to sit with them and talk with them and get their perspective on this. So what I want to do is I want to bring, if I set this up right, there we go. I want to bring my good brother Torrin Walker, to the conversation here at Shifting the Culture, family. Please give my brother a warm round of applause. There we go. My brother is a journalist, digital storyteller. He's did a lot of on the ground boots on the ground footwork as it pertains to writing stories, getting footage, and just making sure that our stories told. My man was, boots on the ground in Ferguson with Mike Brown and many other stories that took place throughout the United States. So, man, he's been on a lot of large platforms, speaking with a lot of important people. So we are definitely thankful to have him here on the podcast. So thank you for joining us, Brother Torn.
What's good, Brother Cam? How you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. And I also want to bring my other guest to the show as well. Get him up here. Guest number 2. All right. I'm doing something a little bit different on this thing, so. But it's all working out. There we go, family. And I have my other guest up there. That is we have here on Shifting the Culture podcast. You might see him. You might have seen him on past episodes. He's a friend of the show. And this is Brother Student Minister Willie Muhammad out of the mighty Muhammad Mosque number 46 in New Orleans. Thank you, brother. Let's give our brother now a warm round of applause for joining the show as well. Thank you, brother Willie, for joining us tonight, brother. Yes, sir. So I have these brothers on, and I'm gonna start with you, Brother Torn. Were you was able to hear what Dr. Umar said, correct?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Okay, yes, sir. So definitely want to get your perspective on Dr. Umar and his positioning and where you fall and what he was talking about.
Well, first of all, we gotta get into the history of hip hop, and we also got to get into what the musical landscape was like before hip hop arrived on the scene. You had funk going into hip hop, which was sort of like this expression of blackness, where you had black men stepping out of sort of like that traditional, bow tie, tuxedo, doo-wop, Motown sort of flavor of what black music and black male expression was. So you had brothers who were coming off of the funk era, where you had the brothers like, George Clinton and Roger Troutman and other cats like out of Ohio, like the Ohio Players and people like that. And they were putting on the outlandish outfits. Even the Isley Brothers, they came out of that tradition of soul music, but they were putting on like the wild costumes with the feathers and everything, and the leather suits coming down to the navel and everything.
Right. Like in Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Detroit Red. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was coming out of that. And there was sort of an expression for black men and just black culture and on its own to be like, okay, I'm black. I'm going to take my expression of blackness as far as I can. And, there was a lot of money involved in that. There was a lot of outlandishness involved in that. What hip hop did was it stripped all that down to the essence of, we are kids in New York. We're kids on the block. We ain't got a lot of money. We don't have money to put on big elaborate shows and have the mothership coming down. So what we're going to do is we're going to get these 2 turntables. We're going to get these house speakers. We're going to hook up to the lamppost. And we're going to just do this block party right here with the Bears to the Bear Elements. You know what I mean?
Right,
and what that did was it gave kids in those areas, starting in New York, a place to express themselves and be able to create their own culture and own language with that. What happened from that was they saw the money that was being made at the block parties. Of course, when you see a new genre come out, somebody wants to record it. So you get Rappers Delight, you get people who are coming out of the block like Curtis Blow, the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Caz, people like that who are starting to go on the wax and go on the records. What that does is once you step into the industry and they see that there's a dollar that can be made off of actual wax records, that puts you in a different ball game. That puts you in a space where you become a commodity. And then when you become a commodity, that the larger culture starts to take advantage of what you're doing. The interesting thing about that is that when it first started, it was really small independent labels. It was like Sugar Hill Records. It was like other small labels around New York that were putting that music out, and mostly it was black labels. Right. It was black owned small record labels. And then when it started branching out of New York, you started seeing it being replicated in other cities. You had like Luther Campbell down in Miami who was doing the 2 Live Crew, and that was an independent label that was done out of the back of a nightclub. You had Eazy-E that was doing Ruthless Records, out of the trunk. You had E40, out of the Bay Area, who was doing all the stuff. And you had all these different smaller black-owned record labels that were basically expressing themselves in that way. They were making tons of money, but it was still connected to the independent hustle and the independent streets and black-owned. When bigger record labels started seeing the money that was being made, we're talking millions of dollars off of like Run DMC and the 2 Live Crew and the Beastie Boys and NWA. They want a piece of that.
Mm.
When they want a piece of that, what happens every time you take black expression and you move it into the mainstream? It gets watered down, it gets commodified, and they take the lowest common denominator. If they see that whatever selling is going to sell, they're going to take that and they're going to market that around the world. So now you have people who are making tons of money, but they may not necessarily be stewards of the culture. They may not be thinking about, okay, this is a culture that we have control of. This is powerful here. We can play long game and we can really build empires on this. And when I say build empires, I'm not talking about just making money off it. I'm talking about you can take this cultural expression and you can sell this and we can control that. But once you start cutting deals with people who are outside of the culture, don't care anything about making outside of making a dollar off the culture, they're going to bond with people who only care about making a dollar out of the culture. So again, you get the lowest common denominator. And I think that's what Dr. Umar was talking about. I think we had an opportunity in the 80s and mid 90s when there were tons of money being made in hip hop. There were millions of dollars being made in hip hop. There was cultural expression that was moving from the culture into the music out into the wider world. And somehow that got disconnected to the point where all you hear about now is that let's get the money as best way we can. It doesn't matter what we do for the culture. We're going to take off and we're going to cast off the things that are quote unquote Afrocentric. The people who are like the Eric B. and Rakims, the Public Enemies, the
Right.
BDPs, people like that, who are giving you dope music, but they're also giving you cultural lessons while you listen to this music. That got thrown by the wayside, and it all became about either sex, violence, and money. To the point where if that's the things are selling, the people who only care about making money are going to take, like I said again, the lowest common denominator and capitalize on that, commodify to the point where everything gets shrunken down into those three elements, and that's all you got right now. So I can see what Dr. Umar's talking about. I can see where he's talking about people didn't really build an infrastructure. The people who were able to capitalize on the minute infrastructure, the Jay-Z's, the people who were able to make tons of money, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is falling by the wayside.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that, brother. Willie, I want to go ahead and bring you in on this, brother. What are your thoughts on what you heard from the clip of Dr. Umar Johnson?
Well, I commend Dr. Umar for the work that he's doing and the actions that he's striving to take to awaken our people, and even his efforts to try to open up an independent Black school to educate our children, right? In regards to this discussion about what has been produced by hip hop in 50 years, you know, as I contemplate on what he said and just a larger discussion that has been taking place about hip hop, I'm starting to wonder if we may be expecting the artists to do something that they don't have the consciousness for, or they may
Mm,
not even have the knowledge for, nor the will to do. Many of these young brothers, when they picked up microphones, they didn't pick up microphones to become leaders, especially
mm,
leaders of Black people. Many of them picked up microphones to escape poverty, right? And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his efforts of getting close to them, that's one of the things that he's been trying to get them to see, that yes, you may have not wanted to be a leader, but your fame and your celebrity has put you in a position of leadership, and as a result of that, there's some things that you need to know. When I heard our brother Dr. Umar make that what he said, it made me realize that that same question can be put toward the Black churches. That
mm.
same question can be put toward the mosque and the masjids. That same question can be put toward the fraternities and the sororities. And also it can be put to where the Pan-Africans have to ask the question as well, where are our hospitals, right?
Right, right.
Now,
Good point.
we have to understand that, as I mentioned earlier, are we asking them to do something that they don't have the knowledge to do? There's a clip that's circulating around the internet with J.R. Smith, the former NBA player.
Mm-hmm,
And he's
mm-hmm.
sitting where he was saying that he was sitting amongst millionaires, and he told them, won't you come up with 250,000? Won't you come up with 250,000? He said, why are we going way to, I think, UCLA or whatever to practice? He said, we can open up our own gym and fund it and give people jobs. But he was taken back how nobody bid on it. But he realized that they didn't even have the thought to do that, right?
Mm,
And so there's a scripture that says, how would they know unless they have a teacher? And I wonder sometimes if we equate wealth with knowledge. Just because
mm.
somebody has wealth doesn't mean that they have the knowledge, right? And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when he was talking about reparations, he said that reparations is not just about money, but it's also about the transference of knowledge, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now brother mentions Marcus Garvey and what he did. and MLK and what he did, right? Dr. King.
Mm-hmm.
What's the glaring difference between those great leaders in the hip hop community? Knowledge. The artists don't have the knowledge that Dr. King has, nor Marcus Garvey. But it was interesting. Remember, when you talk about hospitals, I can only think about how the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad, and I'm not saying this because I'm a member of the Nation of Islam, but prior to his leaving, he had began steps to open up a hospital in Chicago. But if we can study his method, we can learn something about this. Because now, when we did a documentary here in the city of New Orleans, the Mosaic Elijah Muhammad had Joe Tex, who was a former, I guess I would call a soul singer.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Tex was traveling around the country doing performances. Guess what he was doing performances to do? To raise money to donate to the effort of building a hospital. So what if we got people like Dr. Umar, Minister Farrakhan, or whoever we want to get that can have the discussion with these artists and say, listen, I know you may not have the know-how, but I have a group of Black people who have a reputation and have built, shown that they have integrity, that if you raise this money and contribute to that, we can get with the best minds in our community and begin to build an actual hospital or different things. So in closing, what Dr. Umar said, that's a question that can be put to all of those who are in the Black community, not just the hip hop community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that, Student Minister Willie. And I guess I want to say, because I want to go ahead and pose this question off of what you mentioned, Brother Willie, was, the expectations that we have for the artist. And Brother Torn, I want you to go ahead and weigh in on this as well. Is there an unfair expectation or weight that is placed solely on the hip hop artist?
I think there is, but I also think that, as to the brother said earlier, you can't expect an artist who isn't in that mindset to be able to give have those sort of conversations, or even create that sort of content that even speaks to that sort of thing. There are artists out there who do that, but they're not in the mainstream. And if you go back and look at the quote unquote golden age of hip hop, there was an infrastructure that came out of the streets, and it came out of the Nation of Islam. It came out of the 5%ers, and it came out of brothers who were putting that information into their music. You can listen to some of the Rakim's old early work. You listen to KRS-One and BDP. You listen to Chuck and Public Enemy. Right. You listen to Paris on the West Coast. There was sort of like this consciousness in hip hop, embedded in hip hop, where there was a sort of flavor for like Black power and Black nationalism. And that got bred out of the music once it became bought out by the major labels. I mean, it's possible, but right now I think you have to actually have somebody who's actually immersed in that culture, who's been studied in that culture and understands that culture. And then you have to put them into a place where they're willing to create a career based around that. The last time we saw that in the mainstream was Kendrick Lamar, and it's going on a decade since we saw somebody like that break into the mainstream. But I think it's possible. But I do think you're right. I think sometimes there is a lot of undue pressure put on artists just because of their platform and because of their prominence to be able to say the things that we want them to say. But you can't expect somebody who doesn't know to be able to tell you the things that you think the public needs to hear.
Absolutely. And, I think when you look at, for example, the civil rights movement, because that was one thing that Dr. Umar brought up, was the work of Dr. Martin Luther King. And also during that same time, during that same era, you had entertainers who were connected. They had a certain level of connectivity or relationship with those civil rights and freedom fighters. So, when you look at the movie One Night in Miami, that is featuring Jim Brown, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke, is showing that relationship between the athletes, the entertainers, as well as the civil rights and liberation leaders. You have Paul Robeson, another one in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, who was an entertainer who also had heavy connectivity and relationships with those who were in the liberation struggle. When you look at the 80s and the 90s, Michael Jackson, he had connectivity with a lot of the leaders in the liberation struggle. So how important is that today for these artists to have that same connectivity? Because what you will learn is that it was Paul Robeson and the Sam Cooks who had the money to help finance a lot of the moves and the things that was going on with the Martin Luther King, with other freedom fighters and liberation leaders. They was supporting a lot of the ideas. The Martin Luther King had the idea. There was somebody helping to fund the idea. So how important is that same blueprint today that we should have if we want to see those institutions built? And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to you, Brother Willie, and then to you, Brother Torn.
I think what you said is extremely important. And listening to our brother Torrent made me think about stuff that I've been reading, but his words made me think about it, confirmed to me even more so why those artists that had the consciousness, why their information, why their music right now is banned and ignored. Or like Outkast in the chorus of one of their songs in the mainstream, they said people float face down in the mainstream. They've drowned those artists because one of the things that the enemy never wants to take place is, the minister says, is the marriage of wealth and wisdom.
Right.
So they separate that. And I'm afraid that's what's happening now, even by those who are said to be leaders of our community. They are now starting to take an, what's the word that I'm like, a kind of sense like an attack position on these hip hop artists who, from my perspective and from my research and studies, they are victims in this, man. They're pawns in a game that's caught between trying to escape poverty and make a better life for themselves. But now they're doing it in an industry that's saying, in order for you to do that, you got to make this type of music, right? And so we have to begin to be skilled. And as I said the last time I was on your show, the example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the minister says how he doesn't freeze these rappers or these celebrities because he said if you freeze them, you can't get next to them. So if we are now joining the enemy in their attack and trying to blame everything wrong on artists who, check this out, these artists are raised and they're raised and rapping about conditions that they didn't create. And they're raised and rapping from their rap comes out of a mindset that they didn't create. So they are victims in that, right? So I think we have to be very careful in trying to join this chorus to make them the reason why the Black community is in the condition that they are in. But if we are always attacking them, then you never can get close to them to drop that seed of knowledge in them. And I'm not saying this just because I'm in the Nation of Islam, but it's just a fact. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been able to get close to some of these artists and begin to start teaching them about what they should do with their money. And some of those artists who he's been around, they're now buying land. After he sat next to Rick Ross for some time, Rick Ross then got with Gucci Mane and they came out with a song called Buy Up the Block. Am I saying that Rick Ross has changed totally? No. But we have to reward and applaud and celebrate the little baby steps people take. But if we're always attacking them, what happens is people that they fall back and they don't want to have anything to do. And then you know what that does? The person that wants to sell them a Rolex watch that once you flood it out with diamonds is worth nothing, they have their ear. The person wants them to go and buy 10 cars and they can only drive one at a time, they have their ear. So we have to be strategic and understand that we're fighting for the minds and the souls of our people. So we got to be very careful with that, right? And begin to start trying to connect them to that wisdom that can help them to properly use the wealth.
Yes, sir. Brother Torn.
You know, when we have these conversations, we never really get into we never go into the history of the fact that back in those days, the things you mentioned at the top of this last question, the people like Malcolm and Martin and people like that, and everybody knew, there was a very small group of people that everybody knew, and they knew that they were bona fide. The issue with it now is that you got so many people who are claiming to be activists and claiming to be for the people and claiming to be doing work that it's hard to tell who is who and who is legitimate, first off. And also because you have a bigger pool of celebrities and athletes that are Black that it's hard to be able for these people to get all in the same room. Jim, like you mentioned, one night in Miami,
Yes,
those
sir.
4 men were the most prominent black men in the country, if not in the world, right then. It was as far as fame and everything and notoriety. There's about 300 or 400 people who are quote unquote famous in the modern day, and you don't know where their mindsets are at. So it's harder to get people who have that much influence in the same room and to get them on one accord, because you never know who's pulling their strings. You never know what their mindset at. You never know what their psychological health is. So it's trickier now.
Mm.
I think the basic tenet is the same. If you could link up people who have resources and want to do something for their people but don't know where to go, with people who are actually doing the work, I think it's still a beautiful thing that could happen. But the thing is, people got to be vetted now, and you got to figure out who the people who you're trying to connect are really legitimate, real people and everything. Because we've seen what's happened over the past few years. We ain't got to get into the deep end of it, but we just came out of a movement where you had millions of people in the country and millions of people around the world outraged over black suffering and black death at the hands of the state. But
Right.
then when you get into the real details of who was running what, it turns out that the people who were leading some of these protests were not really didn't have the best interest of the people at heart. They were out for themselves. And when you have somebody who's famous, who is connected to people who were turn out to not be who they say they are, that discourages people who have the resources who really want to help. And it also discourages people from even getting involved, because nobody wants to look like they've been taken advantage of, especially in that world where your image is everything. So it's tricky now. I mean, it's hard to try to get people who are really connected to really do these things, because there's so many people with ulterior motives, man. It's just rough.
Yeah.
No, you gotta
Yeah.
you brought up a good point, and to that, what does that vetting process look like? Because that's extremely important. We know who the artists are, we know who the athletes are, we know who the prominent entertainers are, so that is already taken care of. But on the other side of it, on the flip side of it, when it comes to the leadership, the activists, and the people that are on the front lines, what does the vetting process look like to be able to distinguish the real from the fake?
Whew, man, you know what? It's if I had those answers, man, we'd have a whole different movement going on. I don't know,
Yes,
man.
sir.
You just gotta really. Let me say this. I guess for somebody who is wealthy and famous and everything, they really just got to be, first of all, committed to really wanting to do this work. I know most of these people have teams and handlers who really do a lot of vetting for these people.
Hmm.
But just from my point of view, I think the really only way to do it is, man, is just keep your ear to the ground and listen to people who are in these cities that you want to try to put work in, and pay attention to what they're doing and see what kind of work they're doing before you even show up. And I know that's a hard thing to do, and that's a lot of work, and there's a lot of groundwork that goes into that. But if you're really serious, that's the only way you can do it. I can say that I know that Colin Kaepernick's people are really good at doing that. I know he
Hmm.
hasn't really done a lot of a lot of the shine around his first protest has kind of died down, but I do know for a fact that he does do a lot of work outside of the public eye that people don't even know about. And his team is really good at trying to get close to the people who are connected in the cities and everything and figure out what they're doing. But there's very few people who are going to put that sort of work in. You know what I mean?
Right,
It takes a
right,
lot of
right,
work
right.
to do that, but that's the only way I can see do it, man. Look at who's doing work in their community away from any cameras, and that's probably the best bet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, brother.
That's
Willie.
that's a great point in regards to what brother said, and it made me think about how this is why this lawsuit, which has been filed by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, is so important, because they have painted the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with this false label that has made some of our people afraid to want to help him, right? And the same
Mhm.
can be said about our brother Dr. Umar. There are people that we don't even know that are around these artists that handle their money, and they discourage them from giving to such people like a Dr. Umar or Minister Farrakhan, right? So they are
Mhm.
trapped, even though that they have this wealth, that they can't even use it to go and donate to causes that will free our people and make us more independent. I researched something recently, how some years ago, Young Buck was on an Angie Martinez radio show,
Mhm.
and he talked about how he had a song where he was speaking out against police brutality in a way that a rapper like him would address it. And Jimmy Iovine told him, the Interscope Lyrical Committee said you can't put that out, and they
Wow.
removed that because they said the potential that it can cause for violence. But then the rest of the albums is rapping about committing violent acts against black people and self-destructive behavior, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
these are the forces that are around these people. And some of the people that's around them have looked just like us, who are discouraging them. Oh, you don't want to do that. Man, don't waste your money on that. And so when they're not around people that can help guide them on how to wisely use their money, they end up getting abused. They end up being broke at the end. And I think about as in relating to vetting, one of the things I thought about how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when he began to start asking people to contribute to the national Muhammad's blueprint, one of the things the minister said that everybody who's a part of it got to be willing to put their life on the line. That if they are you willing to say if we mismanage this money, that it can take my life?
Right.
That's how
There you
serious
go.
he is about it.
There you
But I
go.
don't know if anybody else is about that. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
sir.
we have to be strategic, man. And that's one of the things I think in this, as our brother was mentioning, in this day and time, brother, with this social media, some people can be driven to do stuff for likes,
That's
for
true.
views, right? And in their effort to get views, and they end up damaging potential relationships. Where we can go to our brothers and say, like, most of us are men. Most men don't want to say what they don't know.
Mm.
And you got to think about it. You're talking to somebody that has 1 million followers, 2 million followers, that can fill an arena. How do you deal with somebody that has that type of mindset? How do you approach them? You see what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
saying?
Yes,
How do
sir.
you approach them? And we already see, you see how simple beefs start, where a rapper might be known for wearing a Yankee hat, and somebody make a verse and they talk about, melt your hat with a bullet, Yankee hat with a bullet, and he talking about me, and the whole beef starts. So what about those who have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and some degree of knowledge itself? Shouldn't we exercise more skill to be able to get next to these artists and be able to put something in their ear, so we can begin to say, look, man, you just was on YouTube they got a video of you on YouTube throwing $200,000 in a strip club. For $200,000, you can help me and others do this type of work in a community that's beyond just giving out turkeys.
Right.
Everybody's giving out turkeys now. You
No,
see
that's
what I'm
the
saying?
yeah, that's real. That's
But they
real.
do that because, like it says, how would they know unless they have a teacher?
Absolutely. Absolutely, family. So listen, this is the Shift in the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Brother King Cam, and I'm here with two powerful brothers, Student Minister Willie Muhammad out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and then I'm here also with my good brother, Brother Torrin Walker, and we're having this discussion: is hip hop responsible for building institutions? And you know, Dr. Umar was talking about the responsibility or the weight on the shoulders of the artist as it pertains to building these institutions. But I wanted to also, as we pivoted to the vetting process of those in leadership, those activists, where do we begin to close the gap, if you will? Because Brother Willie, you mentioned how a lot of, leaders or conscious people is seemingly now attacking the artist. If we've been paying attention to social media the last week and a half, every entertainer, any black entertainer, any black music mogul or anything like that is getting hit with something. Somebody getting hit with something. So it seems like it's just an onslaught of propaganda and just all types of negative energy on top of the entertainers and the hip hop artists. So where do we go to begin to bridge that gap, Brother Torrin? I want to start with you. I know you got to get ready to get up out of here.
Yeah, like I said earlier, man, you just got to go to the ground. You got to go find people who are actually doing this work. And there are people who are doing the work, man. There's people in every city in this country, man, who are either doing,
Yeah,
they're doing food drives, they're doing book programs, or they're
yeah.
doing, they're trying to figure out how to get people out of jail, or they're raising bail funds and that sort of thing. The thing of it is,
Mm-hmm.
people who are really doing that work, it's kind of funny, if they're really doing that work, they don't have time to worry about a media presence because they're actually doing that work. And
Great
a lot of
point.
times the people who are always in the cameras are doing that and showing you that I'm an activist ain't really doing nothing outside of showing you that they're on TV. You just got to
You got a
really.
point.
I mean, I know this is a hard thing to say, and I know a lot of people who are famous don't like to hear this. But if you really are serious about trying to build with your community, you got to go put some feet. You got to really go yourself and go put some feet on the ground and see who's really doing that and vet them for yourself. And to your other point about what's going on in the industry on a major level, man,
Mm-hmm.
look, a lot of the people who are getting caught up in this stuff are the people who got lured into the things I was talking about earlier. They're people who, I don't want to say they sold out, but they sold. It's almost like that Bible verse. They sold their birthright for a mess of pottage. You know what I mean? They got some. They
Mm.
got a nice piece of change. They did very well for themselves, but what did they give up for that outside of the culture? What kind of
Mm.
deals did they have to make? What kind of morality did they have to compromise to be able to get into these places to feel like they're doing something? And like the saying says, white supremacy always breaks its tools. Whether you're an active person who's supporting white supremacy or whether you're doing this bid, the bill always comes due, and the bill may
Mm.
come due in the form of the people who you sell your people out for, cast you out, you ain't got nowhere to go, or you think you're sitting up there drinking and partying with them until the light gets shined on you and you got to go along with everybody else. You know what I mean? That's what's happening. And if you don't build inroads with your people, you got nowhere to go one way or the other. And I think that's what's happening. I
Wow,
think you're
that's
gonna see a lot of them. You're gonna see a lot. You're gonna see quite a few of them reclaim their blackness all of a sudden with kufis on and everything, trying to come back and be righteous all of a sudden.
no, that's real. That's real, man. That's real. I was watching. If you had an opportunity to see Joe Budden podcast, his interview with Tyrese, Tyrese mentioned that he said that his career probably could be bigger than what it is musically if he had a machine that was behind him, but everything that he was able to do with his music career was solely him. And he said that he never sold out his spirituality or his sexuality to get anything that he has. So the attack that's on him is personal to him because he's worked so hard to get what he has and he hasn't sold out to get it. So that point that you just brought up, Brother Torn, was powerful. Is there any closing remarks? I know you got to get ready to run, brother. That you want to give to the people before you get up out of here, and then let them know where to follow you on social media.
Yeah, I just want people to know that, hip hop culture is a very rich culture. Hip hop
Mm.
culture is basically our pain, our struggle, our
Mm.
our aspirations put to music where we don't have to surrender ourselves and have to compromise ourselves like other people have had to do back in the past. But even with that, there have been a lot of serious compromises with hip hop that have been done to hip hop and have been done to us as a culture. And I just want us to understand that we are very widespread. We are a very rich, diverse culture within Black culture, and it's okay for us to express that again. We don't have to we don't have to be put into a thought box, and we don't have to be put into a thug box. We have a very diverse, rich culture that we need to reclaim.
Yes,
Mm.
And
sir.
if people
Beautiful.
want to find me, they can find me on Twitter. I'm probably on there way more than I need to be. I probably need to be doing more work than being on that app, but it's a good
We
place.
love
You can
you on
find me
that
on.
app, though, Torn. We
Say
love
what?
you on the Twitter Space app. We love you on Twitter X app, brother, and especially the work that you're doing with Twitter Spaces. So, brother, if you dial it back just a little, just do it a little bit because we definitely need you on the app.
No, I appreciate it, man. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Torrin Walker TV. I also have a podcast, the Torrin Walker Podcast, that you can see on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeart and other platforms you want to get your podcast from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you, brother Torn, for joining us, brother, and we look forward to having you back on Shifting the Culture.
No
Appreciate you.
doubt. No
Yes,
doubt.
sir. All right, brother Willie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, my
Yes,
brother.
sir, brother. I want to go ahead. I want to get your take on, as it pertains to, really closing that gap, with our artists and,
I'm gonna say
and
what
how
I
we able to
said.
do.
I'm gonna say what I said the last time. Follow. I don't know anybody that has been more effective in being able to build a relationship with the artist, being able to correct the artist, but they still feel his love than the album and the Louis Farrakhan. So I'm gonna start there because that's just the facts. And if I knew what I knew, even if I wasn't in the nation, I will point to him. So I ain't just saying it because he in the Nation of Islam. No,
Right.
it's a fact, right? The other thing I want to say, especially to those of us who are members of the Nation of Islam, we can't get caught up in this trend to condemn our people,
Come on now.
especially knowing what we know. One of the foundational beliefs of our theology outside of what's printed in the back of the final call, as we see in this lawsuit, is that we believe the current condition of our people is a result of what we have experienced as a result of chattel slavery, right?
Yes, sir.
So we have to understand that our people are, in fact, Lazarus. If we look at our brothers and sisters who are in the entertainment industry, if we look at what by the standard and the criteria which God, who we say appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, distinguishes life from death, are they alive or are they dead?
Definitely dead, brother.
So if that is
Nothing
the
better.
case, then that means that all of the behavior that they're engaging in it while they are dead.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to remember the story of Lazarus. While everybody else was talking about the stench that came from the cave that Lazarus, the grave he was built in,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus never mentioned the stench. Jesus never mentioned the stench. What Jesus saw, he saw a man that was in the grave where he was so dangerous. Even while he was in the grave, they had his hands bound, his legs bind, and his face covered, his eyes covered with
Cloth.
a covering cloth.
Mm-hmm.
And they put a stone in front of his grave while he was dead. So that goes to show you, even when our people are dead, the enemy is still going above and beyond to keep them in that. But listen to what Jesus said. When it came time, he didn't condemn Lazarus from the stench that was coming from his body because he was in the grave. He said, loosen him.
Come on.
So when we see our people acting other than what they are doing, we have to remember somebody has them and we should say, loosen them.
Mm.
And that's the thing. But as our love begins to wane for our people, we begin to blame more than trying to redeem.
Come on.
And that's not the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? So
That's
I
right.
would encourage all of us to go back and read the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's letter to J Electronica, where he talks about he's like a parent who sees his baby taking a step, but the baby has a load of waste in this diaper. He said, I don't miss the opportunity to cheer him for that. Like and say, oh, look, you got waste in your diaper. He said he applauds the one step. And so my thing is, until I see our teacher, when he starts giving up on hip hop artists, when he starts taking a different position on hip hop artists and celebrities and our people as a whole, that's when I will start. But as of right now, the mission is still what it is. Our people are possessed. Our people are savage because they lack a knowledge of themselves. And we, who have been students of this body of knowledge delivered by God himself, have what they need to waken them up. So
Yes,
stop condemning and seek more to redeem. Stop condemning and seek more to understand. Stop condemning and seek more to teach. And that's what I would say as it relates to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh man, I was actually trying to find a quote from this white man that the minister had highlighted. Oh, here we go. I think I found it. Where it was Satan's attempt to distinguish divine light. So the minister says this. In his book, Message to the Black Man in America, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote about Henry Berry, a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, who said on January 20th, 1832, pass as severe as laws as you will to keep these unfortunate creatures in ignorance. It is in vain unless you can extinguish that spark of intellect which God has given them. So that is what came to my mind when you talked about the cutting off of the wisdom. When they rolled the stone in front of Lazarus and in front of his tomb, even though he was dead, they still rolled the stone in his tomb to keep him, to just to be sure. So as you mentioned before, even in a dead state, the enemy is working double and triple to keep you in that oppressive and depressive state so that you can never tap into the intellect in which God gave you. So when you are not able to tap into that light, when you're not able to connect with the source of strength, the source of power, then you're not going to be able to execute the things that are necessary for your development. You're not going to have the idea to take the money, as J.R. Smith was saying, and go and do something for yourself. Why? Because you have been trained. You have been coached. You have been cultivated to rely solely on the master or the rich man. So you sit by the rich man's table and you eat the crumbs from his table, even though he has let you go. Even though he has set you free, you still deny your own self freedom because you are so in love with the rich man and what he has given you. And it's because of the inability to connect with the intellect of God or the light that God is through his messenger, through his warner, through his Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and those who came before us in the pathway or in the vein of the prophets that would give us light during the time of darkness. So
That's it.
The separation is so important. The separation
And-
is so important.
And as we get, as I guess we about to wrap up, say this
Yes,
last thing
sir.
because I just thought about this. Look at these other wealthy people who our artists are trying to get around. The Robert Crafts, the what's the dude who owns the Dallas Maverick? Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
The guy that owns the Philadelphia 76ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear them talking about using their wealth to build stuff for their community. So if our artists are trying to get around them and they idolize them and want to be able to do stuff like they're doing on a financial level, you think Robert Kraft and Mark Cuban and the other guy, you think they're gonna say, man, hey, take some of this money and look at your community
Right.
and go open up some grocery stores, open up some other people shouldn't be selling y'all chicken and chicken and Yakima. If you're here in the city of New Orleans, I don't know if they have it other places, or cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteaks. They shouldn't be selling that. Y'all should be selling that. They're not telling them that because the enemy's job has always been to prevent wealth from marrying wisdom. And this beast is so clever, brother. He's so clever that he now has us turning on our people who are victims. And we don't even some of us who have knowledge, we're going after them as if they are the reason our community is in the condition that it's in. And then another strategy that they have used, they've made conscious rappers not even want to be referred to as conscious rappers anymore. Go look at it. Talib Kweli did an interview. He said he kind of hates the title now.
Wow.
Think about now who created that? You saw that we're dealing with a person that has mastered tricknology, who was so clever that when it was time for the sons of God to come up there to meet God, Satan was with him.
Satan
and they
was
didn't even
walking right with
realize.
him. That's
And we
a fact.
don't even realize we're condemning our own people who are victims and are pawns in this devil's system.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There you have it, family. There you have it. So, Brother Minister Willie, where can the people stay in contact with you, brother? And where can they catch up with you?
First, man, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show, and keep doing what you are doing, brother. Keep doing it. Whatever I can do to help, I'm willing to help. They can follow us at I'm Brother Willie I'm Brother _ Willie on Instagram. They can follow our Mosque page, Mosque MOSQUE 46 on Instagram, and we're also on YouTube as Mosque MOSQUE 46AV on YouTube, and we have our website www.mosque46.org. So we thank you all for that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely. And Brother Minister Willie, I don't know if you all family know this or not, but Brother Minister Willie is very innovative in his approach to spreading the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So he doesn't shy away from the use of social media, as you just heard him talk about the different handles that not only himself uses, but also the mosque is on Instagram. So you're able to see what's going on with the mosque in New Orleans, the activities, the different programs, the different things that they're doing in the community so that you're able to see it. So even if you're outside of the city of New Orleans and live somewhere else in Louisiana and maybe thinking about coming to New Orleans, you see what the mosque is doing and things of that nature. So, we're getting right down to the modern times with what we're doing and spreading this message. And Brother Minister Willie is one of the forerunners in doing so as a minister under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So we certainly thank you for that, Brother Minister Willie, as well.
Thank you, my brother. May Allah continue to bless you.
Yes, sir. You as well. Peace.
Peace.
So, family, there you have it. There you have it, man. We, was thankful and blessed to have those brothers come on and share their perspective. And before we get on up out of here, I know what you're thinking. We didn't do the music at the beginning of the show like we always do. So we're gonna get that out before we end the show. We're gonna break and we're gonna give you that golden child. Okay. So you're gonna get that music, you feel me? But I wanted to stay in the spirit and the vibe of what we are discussing as we close, because this aspect of the enemy working to keep you away from the light is very valuable for us to know. And as Brother Minister Willie brought it up in his parable or analogy with the scripture and the story of Lazarus, it stands true today. So further, the minister continues to quote Mr. Barry, who is a Virginia House of Delegates, a member of Virginia House of Delegates in 1832. And he continues to say, quote, and this is Mr. Barry speaking, "Sir, we have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter their, black people, minds. We only have to go one step further to extinguish their capacity to see the light, and our work will be completed. And they would then be reduced to the level of the beasts of the field, and we should be safe. Sir, a death struggle must come between the two classes or races in which one or the other will be extinguished forever." So a member of the Virginia House of Delegates is exposing now the work that they are to do, which is to extinguish every avenue in which light can enter their, black people, you and I, and our minds. He said they only have to go one step further and then their work will be completed. So one, he's exposing the mind and the mission in which they operate out of. See, so when people try to tell you that we are in a post-racial society and, slavery and that type of mindset doesn't exist any longer, just take a look at your conditions. Just take a look at the community. Even though you may live in a affluent neighborhood, or you may live, up in what people like to classify as middle class neighborhood, even though middle class doesn't exist no more, but you ain't living in the projects. So your perspective on things is different. When you operate within a different tax bracket, your perspective of things are a little bit different. But he's telling you that they have a job to do. He's telling you that they have a mission. He's telling you that their goal is to extinguish every avenue in which light can enter your minds. So when it comes to our brothers in the hip hop industry, they're surrounded by those who have that same mindset. They're surrounded by those who want to reduce us to the beasts of the field. This is why the music says what it says and does what it does, because their goal is to reduce us to the beasts of the field. You didn't hear me. That's the goal. So they want to keep you away from anybody who would offer your mind light. They want to keep the artists away from those who would offer wisdom. And as student minister Brother Willie Muhammad said, the ultimate marriage is between wealth and wisdom. And if you're able to marry the two together, then you have a bond. You have a relationship. You have a matrimony now that will ultimately build a new civilization. But they don't want that. So as it was in the civil rights movements, when the artists and the entertainers and the athletes had a relationship, they had connectivity, they was tapped in with one another, and the ideas that the activists had for liberation was supported and funded by the athletes and the entertainers, specifically at that time, the entertainers. That doesn't exist today. It doesn't exist today because not only are the entertainers and athletes making more money than they were in the 60s, so if you had that same marriage to take place now, you would really move the needle forward. But their goal, their mission is to close off every avenue in which light can enter your mind, so you cannot be connected to the intellect in which God gave you. So we can't get caught up, as Brother Student Minister Willie mentioned, in the condemning of our brothers in the hip hop community. Yes, they have a responsibility and accountability in which the music that they put out, what they saying to the people, because it programs the culture. So they have a responsibility and accountability there. But they also have a responsibility and accountability to do whatever it is that they can do to support the ones who are on the front lines, those who are working to bring about change and have ideas of change. Those artists who don't have that same wisdom, don't have those visionary ideas, are supposed to support. But what's blocking the support? Those that surround the ones who can offer the finances to bring the ideas out of your mind and into reality. Because their mission is to close off every avenue of light that will enter into the mind. So this is why we can't be so quick to come out and condemn. Because see, if Dr. Umar had the support of the artists in building his school and opening his school, he wouldn't be talking the way he's talking. For all its extensive purposes. If he had the money and the support from the athletes and the artists in him building his school and establishing his schools, he wouldn't be saying the things that he was saying. So, there's a gap that exists there. And we have to begin to close the gap. And this is why Shifting the Culture is in existence, because we're here to bridge the gap. We're here to close the gap. Shifting the culture. We're here to change that whole mindset into a new mindset, like the Joshua generation. As Joshua did in the Old Testament, he led the youth into the promised land, defeated those that were in the promised land, and established themselves in the land in which God had given them. But it was only because of Joshua's obedience to God, which gave them the strength and the power to overcome their enemies. And that's where we at today. This is why the scripture says, if you resist the devil, he will flee from you. The problem is we have trouble resisting him, because the devil give blessings too. God give blessings, but the devil come with blessings too. And he comes right in your straight path of your desires. And when he's able to present you with an opportunity to obtain that which you have always wished for, dreamt for, worked for, you have a hard time. We have a hard time resisting the devil. So we don't never see him fleeing because we're not doing enough resisting. So we have to resist the devil so that he will flee from us, and then we'll be able to embark on that journey, that marriage between, the artists and the entertainers and the leaders will come together, and we'll be able to build those 50 Black Wall Streets that Dr. Umar mentioned before. But we got a lot of work to do, and it begins with fortifying one another, encouraging one another, and supporting those who you see have a proven track record of doing the work, family. So I'm not going to belabor the point on that. We appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Brother King Cam. This is Shifting the Culture Podcast, and this has been another beautiful, beautiful broadcast. And we appreciate everybody tuning in from all over the country to listen to what we have to say. Now, as I promised you all, we're going to get to our musical selection, as we always do, with our good brother, Brother Golden Child, who, has this record that's out, and it's called Rebellious. And I am this is my favorite record. I'm not even gonna hold you. This, like I said, it's like my favorite record that's out right now. And it's because not only is the beat fire, the lyrics is fire, but the visual implementation of it speaks to our condition, and really what we fighting and what we facing. So I certainly appreciate it a lot. And I always like to come with the visuals, right? So here we go. This is that Golden Child Rebellious. Tap in.
Justice on stolen land. Are you really for peace and equality? Or when my car is hooked up, no, you want to follow me. Your laws are minimal, because you won't even think about looking at the real criminal.
You know. Yes, sir. The victory belongs to the righteous. Our power is in our unity. Yeah. Look, when you see me coming, know it's serious. Am I really like that? Ask the trenches if you curious. I still laugh and know how to have a good time. Just gotta ask God to forgive us for how we get when we furious. Masculine,
he, him, his. Yeah, we on that.
Try to cancel me, you might get canceled.
You should know that.
No, I can't let them castrate me.
No, sir.
They won't pay me for my manhood. Keep it. We don't want that. U.S. soldiers come home and the people thank them for their service. If they knew how many lives we saved, they thank us for our service. Save some people's lives that might not ever know we saved them. Long as Allah pleased with how we out here working, then it's always worth it. Look, please don't get us confused. Yeah, we pushing peace, but we get busy, we get violent too. Got some brothers with the movement, but they ain't got all they screws. We just found the truth and we were Allah come against us and you bound to lose. Can't say I ain't warn you, can't say I ain't tell you. Come through with them ones, with the members called us failures. Grew up in the trenches, but it turned us into warriors. Mama, I was born to buck the system, I'm rebellious for sure. Look, they ask me, is this real or is this for the cameras? A lot of brothers say they for our people, but really be scammers. If all the work I put in was on camera, you would have that answer. What I look like doing this for clout, look, I got higher standards. I don't need 100 soldiers with me, I got God with me. Still pull up deep to show the brothers unified with me. Know some brothers ready for whatever that's gonna ride with me. Got some real dedicated members on this side with me. Youngin' out his mind, off a pill, he think he's Superman. Off a pill, he get way out his body, think he's Super Saiyan. He just trying to escape the pain for real, escape reality. Streets depressing, you can lose your mind and you can lose your head. Promise we been getting the trench together though, for sure that, They trying to tell us what to do, respectfully we know that, Lot of commentary from them people on the sidelines. All that stuff they like to talk about, we really on that. So look, please don't get us confused. Yeah, we pushing peace, but we get busy, we get violent too. Got some brothers with the movement, but they ain't got all they screws. We just found the truth and we were Allah come against us and you bound to lose. Can't say I ain't warn you, can't say I ain't tell you. Come through with them ones, with the members called us failures. Grew up in the trenches, but it turned us into warriors. Mama, I was born to buck the system, I'm rebellious for sure.
Mama, I was born to buck the system, I'm rebellious for sure. Mama, I was born to buck the system.
I'm rebellious for sure. Man, that's that Golden Child. That's that Rebellious, family. So for those, you want to check that out, man, make sure you go ahead and get that on all social media, actually streaming platforms, where you can download your music, iTunes, Spotify, and all that. But also, too, family, make sure you support your brother. This is my book. It's called The Enemy is the Enemy, 4 Ways to Stop Self-Destructive Behavior. So if you haven't had an opportunity to grab this, you can click the link in my bio, because if we are pushing peace, we pushing unity, we shifting the culture, then you have to understand how to stop self-destructive behavior. This is a good start. 4 ways to stop self-destructive behavior. Click the link in my bio. You want to go ahead and grab that. Before we get up out of here, I want to also drop this on you as well, so that you're able to tap into that tech industry if you are looking to get to the bag. The tech industry is projected to have increase, and you want to go ahead and get in right now, so that you can be able to leverage that. So let's take a look at this commercial, and then we're going to go ahead and close out. Greetings. You may have seen my video on YouTube where I talk about my tech journey and how I was able to take $100 and turn it into $85K. The way I was able to do that was jumping into the tech industry, breaking through that door, and getting in on an entry level through a tech boot camp by the name of Course Careers. Number one, the reason why I took Course Careers was because of the price. Course Careers is extremely affordable. It is only $500, and if you utilize my discount code, it can take $50 off, and it'll actually be $450. But even better, they have a payment plan for those of us who wasn't able to pay $450 up front, because I couldn't even pay $450 up front. That's how bad your brother was. So I wasn't able to pay $450 up front, but they have a payment plan option that allows you to put $100 down, and you're able to get access to the course. The number two reason why I got into Course Careers was because of all of the testimonials. The third reason why I took Course Careers was because of the free introductory course. Troy did an excellent, phenomenal job in the free introductory course that gave you an outline of what you will be learning in Course Careers, and also went through his own personal story, his own personal struggles, and how tech sales changed his life, and why it will be able to change your life as well. So if you're interested in taking Course Careers, I'm going to put my discount code up and available so you can get $50 off. If you click the link below, you're going to be able to start your Course Careers journey, get $50 off, and then what I want you to do is refer a friend, because once this changes your life, why would you keep it to yourself? You need to let somebody else know. So again, click the link in the bio, click the link below, and when you click the link below, I thought it was on Instagram. When you click the link below, then you'll be able to start your tech journey, get to this tech bag, and don't forget the discount code that's going to take $50 off. Don't hesitate, family. Don't waste no more time. Get into Course Careers right now. Click the link below. Let's get started. And then feel free to reach out to me. I want to help as many people as possible, especially people in my community. So click the link below again. Let's get started. Get the $50 off. Let's get to the bag. Hey, man, the show is growing. Man, we got contributors. Man, we got commercials. You know, we doing all of that beautiful stuff, family. So, man, what's the lag? What's the lag? Understand what's going on? Why the hotspot looking janky? I mean, not the hotspot, but the Wi-Fi acting janky right now. But, yeah, family. So we growing, you know, and we definitely got sponsorships available. So if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, you can have your logo up on the screen, commercial playing, drops and all of that during the broadcast. Then you can go ahead and reach out to your brother, bookbrotherkingcam@gmail.com, and someone will get back to you as far as that's concerned. Also, if you want to join our online community, then what you can do is you can text STC Podcast to 888-294-2793. Again, you can text the word STC Podcast to 888-294-2793. It's been scrolling across the bottom of the screen all night, and you have an opportunity to actually go ahead and become a part of that community, because we're going to be doing some great things. Just text it. You'll receive a text back. You'll be locked in. We'll have all your information, and then we'll be able to go from there, family. So, man, we appreciate you. We getting back into this golden child on our way out the door. We certainly appreciate it, though, family.
We get when we furious, masculine, he, him, his, yeah, I'm on that. Try to cancel me, you might get canceled. You should know that. No, I can't let them castrate me. No, sir, they won't pay me for my manhood. Keep it, we don't want that. U.S. soldiers come home and the people thank us for their service. If they knew how many lives they saved, they thank us for our service. Save some people's lives that might not ever know we saved them.
Yeah.
Allah, please, with how we out here working.
Then it's always working. Yeah.
Please don't
get us confused.
Yeah, we pushing peace,
but we get busy.
We get violent.
Yeah.
Got Got some brothers with the movement, but they
make
ain't
sure
got
y'all go
all
ahead and
these
cop
screws.
this.
We
Click
just
the link in
found
the bio.
truth and we were Allah.
It's going down.
You bound to lose.
Yeah.
Can't say I ain't warn you. Can't say I ain't tell you. Come through with them ones, with them members, call us failures. Grew up in the trenches, but it turned us into warriors. Mama, I was born to buck the system. I'm rebellious for sure. Look, they ask me, is this real or is this for the cameras? A lot of brothers say they fire people, but really be scammers. If all the work I put in was on camera.
Hey man, if you out there scamming, we see you.
Like doing this,
Cut it out.
I got highest.
Yeah.
I don't need 100 soldiers with me.
I got God with me.
Still pull up deep to show the brothers unified with me. Know some brothers ready for whatever that's gonna ride with me. Got some real dedicated members on this side with me. Youngin' out his mind off a pill.
He think he's Superman.
Off a pill, he get way out his body.
Think he's Super Saiyan.
He just trying to escape the pain for real.
Escape reality.
Streets depressing, you can lose your mind and you can lose your head.
Hey man, this how we do it on Shifting the Culture podcast.
Show that, They trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah, we gotta keep the hip hop culture alive.
Them people on the
Sidelines.
all that stuff they like to talk about, we really on that.
So look,
Please
don't get us confused.
Yeah, we pushing peace,
But we get busy, violent too.
Got some brothers with the movement, but they ain't got all
they
they screws.
screws.
We just found the truth and we were Allah. Come against us and you bound to lose. Can't say I ain't warn you. Can't say I ain't tell you. Come through with them ones, with them members, call us failures. Grew up in the trenches, but they turned us into warriors. Mama, I was born to buck the system. I'm rebellious for sure.
Mama, I was born to buck the system, I'm rebellious for sure. Mama, I was born to buck the system, I'm rebellious for sure.
Show. All right, family. That's it. Next week, we'll catch you back here. Same black time, same black place. Shifting the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Brother King Cam. Assalamu alaikum.
Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own.
You know. Not your average nigga, I'm a god out the hood. They can't downplay me. I came up, I'm elevated. I ain't gotta say too much for them to know I'm coming for what's mine. You know they see me in my presence, say they see how I'm coming. Young, but you not just gonna finesse me like you did my peoples. Then back when you said they was emancipated. This ain't that. Your head too big. You feeling yourself. The game wasn't fair. You had the advantage. We wasn't educated. I don't look at you people the same. Nah. Your worst nightmare, my skin tone about them chains. Yeah. Not no circus lion, son, I can't be tamed. You gon' have to kill me, pussy. Toby ain't my name. Y'all still want us think our history started when we were slaves? What? Come on now, talk about them pyramids we made. I was chosen by that man, you know y'all just been running game. The nerve of you acting like